following may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Epidemiologist Dr. Avery Hines is urging people not to let their guards down after receiving the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccines. He is also concerned that many people are still moving about despite the state of emergency and lockdowns implemented to reduce the spread of the virus. He made the call yesterday as he revealed the Ministry of Health was still awaiting official confirmation of details from the families of 4 to 5 people who had died after getting their first jabs. Speaking during the Ministry of Health briefing, Hines sought to reassure the public that there have not been many instances of a first dose of a COVID-19 vaccine being administered and a virus-related death being recorded. He said, in those where it has happened, there are maybe about 4 or 5 that we have on record, and they're usually persons who would have contracted the illness pretty soon after having had their vaccine. But we're still attempting to get the documentation on the vaccine itself from some of these individuals. He said this information will be refined and clarified as it becomes available, as this data isn't always presented to the clinical staff at the point in time when the fatality occurs. Of the cases so far reported verbally, Hines said, the ones who would have a fatal outcome and claim to or have a record of a vaccine, those persons have all only had a first dose and would have been relatively close, less than 2 weeks after that first dose, that they would have then become ill, and that is sort of in keeping with the expectation that the first dose of vaccine needs a couple weeks before your immunity is boosted sufficiently by it. He added, even with that first dose of vaccine on board, the immunity is not optimized yet, which is why your second dose of vaccine is of utmost importance. As of yesterday, 822 people had died from COVID-related complications. Hines encouraged people to come forward and continue being vaccinated against the virus and urged them not to become complacent after being fully vaccinated. He also urged the continuance of wearing masks, social distancing, and sanitizing. On June 24, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Roshan Parasram explained that a fully vaccinated individual is someone who has received the 2 doses of an approved WHO vaccine and has completed the requisite 2-week period after receiving the final dose. It is the same for anyone receiving any of the 1-dose vaccines, he said. As TNT prepares to reopen borders after 15 months, returning nationals and visitors will have to provide proof that they have received a WHO-approved vaccine, he said. Hines said by only allowing vaccinated travelers entry, this measure will aid in minimizing the risk of the spread. Pressed to comment on some countries which have established a criteria which does not include acceptance of the Sinopharm vaccine at this time, Hines said it did not necessarily mean the individual could not travel to the country in question, unless this was specified. Instead, he said, the person would be managed as an unvaccinated individual and would be subjected to the country's quarantine processes. Asked if the ministry was satisfied that the number of new infections had come down and if this was a result of the restrictions, he said, one of the things we noticed is that even with the restrictions, even with the implementation of several measures aimed at reducing movement, there is still a significant amount of movement within the population. He compared this year's lockdown to last year's as he added, you realize that decrease in movement and the consequent decrease in persons interacting. That decrease was not as significant this year as last year, so the impact, therefore, of reducing that risk of contamination and risk of transmission would be somewhat less if you continue to have additional movement. Hines said, While they did not set a particular benchmark, the authorities have continued to monitor the change, and as decreases are recorded, new projections are made as to how quickly they expect to continue to decrease. EU vaccine passport effective July 1st. The European Union completed all the legislative procedures needed for the EU COVID-19 vaccine passport for travel to become effective on June 14, when the presidents of the three main EU institutions, the Parliament, the Commission, and the Council, signed a regulation on the document at an official signing ceremony. The EU hopes that the document will help restore the freedom of movement in the bloc for all those vaccinated with one of the vaccines approved by the European Medicines Agency (EMA), those who have recently recovered from the virus and can prove it, as well as those who test negative. The EU COVID-19 vaccine passport for travel has ignited the hopes of many that within a short period they will be able to travel to Europe with minimal entry measures, SchengenVisaInfo.com reports. 13 countries have already issued the passport ahead of the date set for the document to be launched on July 1st, including Germany, Greece, and Spain. However, while the document is very promising for a large share of world travelers planning to head to the EU this summer, many may be ineligible to obtain it in spite of being vaccinated. EMA Approved Vaccines. The European Medicines Agency (EMA), which is the agency of the European Union responsible for the evaluation and supervision of medicinal products, has approved only 4 coronavirus vaccines so far, which are Comirnaty, BioNTech Pfizer, COVID-19 vaccine Moderna, Vaxzevria, previously COVID-19 vaccine AstraZeneca, COVID-19 vaccine Janssen, Johnson & Johnson. On the other hand, the following 4 are currently under rolling review of EMA, but a decision on their approval is yet to be taken. CureVac, Novavax, Sputnik V, COVID-19 vaccine Verocell inactivated Sinovac. Yet according to the EU COVID-19 vaccine passport for travel regulation, the member states are obliged to issue and accept passports only to those who have been vaccinated with one of the vaccines already approved by the EMA. It remains up to the governments of the member states to decide whether they want to accept the vaccines that haven't been approved yet. When it comes to waiving free movement restrictions, member states will have to accept vaccination certificates for vaccines which received EU marketing authorization. Member states may decide to extend this also to EU travelers that received another vaccine, a Commission's fact sheet on the document explains. This same also points out that the member states can decide by themselves if they accept a vaccination document after one dose or after both doses have been administered. COVISHIELD Travellers not allowed in EU. The European Medicines Agency (EMA) has not approved the AstraZeneca vaccine manufactured by the Serum Institute India (SII), known as COVISHIELD, so travelers who have received this vaccine are not allowed to enter the member states under EU Digital Vaccination Passport, SchengenVisaInfo.com reports. However, the CEO of SII, Adar Poonawalla, insists that he has taken up the issue and is working to address it soon. I realize that a lot of Indians who have taken COVISHIELD are facing issues with travel to the EU. I assure everyone, I have taken this up at the highest levels and hope to resolve this matter soon, both with regulators and at diplomatic levels with countries, he stated on June 28th. In an interview, Poonawalla said that he has applied to the European Medicines Agency, EMA, and is hoping to get the approval of COVISHIELD for European countries, and noted that he is taking up the issue with the EMA and diplomatically. COVISHIELD is already cleared by the World Health Organization (WHO) and the United Kingdom's Medicine and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency (UK MHRA), so I hope the EMA clearance will also come on over the next few weeks, he said. According to COVID-19 Vaccine Tracker, the vaccine has been approved in 44 countries worldwide, as the following list indicates: Afghanistan, Antigua and Barbuda, Argentina, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Barbados, Bhutan, Bolivia, Botswana, Brazil, Cabo Verde, Canada, Côte d'Ivoire, Dominica, Egypt, Ethiopia, Ghana, Grenada, Honduras, Hungary, India, Jamaica, Lebanon, Maldives, Morocco, Myanmar, Namibia, Nepal, Nicaragua, Nigeria, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Seychelles, Solomon Islands, Somalia, South Africa, Sri Lanka, Suriname, the Bahamas, Togo, Tonga, Trinidad and Tobago, and the Ukraine. There are 19 approved COVID vaccines. 37 are in the third phase of testing, 50 on the second one, and 35 vaccines are in the first testing stage. At the beginning of the month, SchengenVisaInfo.com reported that travelers who have received the Russian, Chinese, and Indian vaccines would face entry restrictions by EU member states, since many of the latter followed EMA's recommendations and recognized only the approved vaccines. However, countries are allowed to individually decide which vaccines to approve and whether to grant travelers permission after the first or second shot of the vaccine has been administered.